behalf of the University of Northampton's Amateur Dramatic Society, I would like to warmly welcome everyone to the student showcase of Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest. Thank you very much for your attendance here tonight. I would like to remind everyone that no one here is actually studying or practicing acting or drama as a course or profession. We are a society that encourages expression in oneself. Therefore, I am extremely proud to acclaim each student's immense effort to make this play possible. We are simply making a statement and standing as a reminder that we all have different dreams and passions outside of our initial occupations and professions, and this society has given us the individual chances to pursue that. All of us here today are different in what we have, do, or want, but we have undoubtedly been able to unite every week and enjoy one another's company while opening ourselves up to new confidence and demeanor. I would therefore like to thank every member for making this experience one of a kind. We have decided to choose Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest due to its great success over the years. To summarize, John Worthing and Algernon Moncrief are two upper-class men who use the same pseudonym of Earnest in order to court their two greatly desired love interests, Gwendolen and Cecily. Both men must then deal with the inevitable consequences of their deceptions. We greatly hope that you enjoy our play and you're here tonight, your time. Now, without any further ado, please give a warm round of applause for the Amateur Dramatic Society.
Did you hear what's playing, Lane?
I didn't think it polite, Mr. Stone.
I'm sorry to hear that, for your sake. I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately. But I play with wonderful expression. As far as the piano is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I keep science for life.
Yes, sir.
And speaking of the science of life, have you got the cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
Oh, and by the way, Lane, I see from your book that on Thursday night, when Lord Shoreham and Mr. Worthing were dining with me, 8 bottles of champagne are entered as having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why is it that at a bachelor's establishment, the servants invariably drink the champagne? I ask merely for information.
I attribute to the superior quality of wine, sir. I also observe that in a married household, champagne is rarely a first-rate brand.
Good heavens, is marriage as demoralizing as that?
I think it is interesting state, but I have little experience of that. After percent, I have just been married once, and it's in consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I do not think I am very much interested in your family life, Lane.
No, sir, I don't think it's an interesting subject. I never think of it myself.
Very natural, I'm sure. That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the low orders don't set us a good example, then what on earth is the use of them? They seem as a class to have absolutely no moral responsibility.
Mr. Earnest Worthing.
How are you, my dear Ernest? What brings you up to town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. What's bring anyone anywhere? Eating as usual, I see, Algy.
It is customary in good society to have a slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
In the country.
What on earth do you do there?
One is in town, one meets oneself. One is in the country, one meets other people. It's frightfully boring.
And who are the people you amuse?
Oh, neighbours, neighbours.
Your nice neighbours, your past Shropshire?
Perfectly horrid. I speak to one of them.
How mutually you must amuse them. By the way, Shropshire is your county, is it not?
Any Shropshire? Yes, of course. Hello, why are these teacups? Why these cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance and why so young? Who's coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolen.
How perfectly delightful.
Yes, that is all very well, but Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of you being here.
May I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolen is perfectly disgraceful. It is almost as bad as the way Gwendolen flirts with you.
I'm in love with Gwendolen. I can't expressly propose to her.
I thought you'd come up here for pleasure. I call that business.
How utterly unromantic you are.
I don't see anything romantic in proposing. It is very romantic to be in love, but there's nothing romantic about a definite proposal. Why, one may be accepted, and one usually is, I believe, and then the excitement is all over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If ever I get married, I'll certainly try to forget the fact.
I've no doubts about that, dear Algy. Divorce court especially invented for people's memories are so curiously constituted.
No, there's no use speculating on the matter. Divorces are made in heaven. Please do not touch the cucumber sandwiches. They are ordered especially for Aunt Augusta.
You've been eating them the whole time.
That is quite a different matter. She is my aunt. Have some bread and butter. The bread and butter is for Gwendolen. Gwendolen is devoted to bread and butter.
And very good bread and butter it is too.
Well, my dear fellow, you need not eat as if you can eat it all. You behave as if you're married to her already. You are not married to her already, and I don't think you ever will be.
Why on earth do you say that?
Well, in the first place, girls don't marry the men they flirt with. Girls don't think it right.
That is nonsense.
It isn't. It is a great truth, and it comes from the extraordinary number of bachelors one sees all over the place. In the second place, I do not give my consent.
Your consent?
My dear fellow, Gwendolen is my first cousin, and before I allow you to marry her, you have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? What do you mean, Algy, by Cecily? I don't know anyone with the name of Cecily.
Bring the cigarette case Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room the last time he dined here.
Yes, sir.
Do you mean to say you've had my cigarette case this whole time? Goodness, you'd have told me. You'd be writing frankful letters to Scotland Yard about it. Very nearly offering a large reward.
Well, as you would offer one, it happens to be more than usually hard enough.
There's no point offering a large reward now that things have been found.
I think that is rather mean of you, Ernest, I must say. However, it makes no matter, for now if I look at the inscription inside, I find that the thing isn't yours after all.
Of course it's mine. You've seen me with it 100 times. You have no right whatsoever to read what's written inside. It's a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette case.
Oh, it's absurd to have a hard and fast rule about what one should read or what one shouldn't. Half of modern culture is about what one shouldn't read.
I'm quite aware of that, and I don't wish to discuss modern culture. It's the sort of thing one should talk of in private. I simply want my cigarette case back.
Yes, but this isn't your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a present from someone of the name of Cecily. You said you didn't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, charming old lady she is too. Lives at Tunbridge Wells. Now give it back to me, Algy.
Well, why would she call herself Little Cecily if she is your aunt and lives in Tunbridge Wells? And Little Cecily with her fondest love.
My dear Algy, what is there in that? Sans are tools, sans are not tools. Sure, it's a matter an aunt can decide for herself. You seem to think every aunt should be like your aunt. That's absurd. Besides, it's perfect right for me. Now give it back.
But why would your own aunt call you her uncle? From Little Cecily with her fondest love to dear Uncle Jack. There is no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt. But why an aunt, no matter what size may be, would call her own uncle, her own nephew, her uncle? I can't quite make out. And besides, your name isn't Jack at all. It is Ernest.
It isn't Ernest, it's Jack.
You have always told me it's Ernest. I've introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You look as if your name was Ernest. You're the most Ernest-looking person I ever saw in my life. And it's perfectly absurd that you're saying your name isn't Ernest. It's on your cards. Here's one of them. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B40 Albany. I'll keep it as proof that your name is Ernest if ever you try and attempt to deny to me, to Gwendolen, or to anyone else.
Well, my name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country. And a cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not account for the fact that your spoiled Aunt Cecily, who lives in Tunbridge Wells, calls you her uncle. Come, old boy, you much better have the thing out at once.
My dear Algy, you talk as if you're a dentist. It's very vulgar to talk like a dentist when one isn't a dentist. It creates a false impression.
Well, that is what dentists always do. Now go on, tell me the whole thing. And may I mention, I always suspected you of being a confirmed secret Bunburyist, and I'm quite sure of it now.
Bunburyist? What do you mean by a Bunburyist?
I reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you kindly inform me as to why you were Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now produce your explanation and pray make it improbable.
My dear fellow, there's nothing improbable about my explanation at all. In fact, it's perfectly ordinary. Late Mr. Thomas Cardew, adopted me as a little boy, made me out of his will as guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, addressed me as her uncle from a respect you cannot possibly appreciate, is my place in the country, under charge of Admiral Governess, as prison.
Where's that place in the country, by the way?
There's nothing to you, dear boy. You shan't be invited.
I suspected that, my dear fellow. I've Bunburyed on 2 separate occasions all over Shropshire. Now go on, why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
Oh, my dear fellow, hardly think you're serious enough to understand my real motives. One is placed in the position of guardian, must adopt a high moral tone in all subjects. It's one's duty to do so. And since the high moral tone can hardly be said to induce very much to either one's health or one's happiness, in order to get up to town, I've always pretended to have a younger brother of the name of Earnest. He lives in the Albany and gets the most dreadful scrapes. That's, my dear Algie, the whole truth, pure and simple.
The truth is never pure and never simple. Modern life would be very tedious if it was either. A modern literature, a complete impossibility.
That wouldn't be at all a bad thing.
Literary criticism is not your forte, my dear fellow. Don't try it. You should leave that to people who haven't been at a university. They do so well in the daily papers. What you really are is a Bunburyist. I was quite right in saying you were a Bunburyist. You're one of the most advanced Bunburyists I know.
What on earth do you mean?
You have invented a useful younger brother by the name of Earnest in order that you can go up to town as often as you like. I have invented a permanently invaluable invalid by the name of Bunbury in order that I can go down to the country whenever I choose. Bunbury is perfectly invaluable, for if it wasn't for his extraordinary bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you at Willis's tonight. But really, I've been engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
Now she's dining anywhere tonight.
I know, it is absurdly careless of you about sending your invitations. It is very foolish of you. Nothing annoys people more so much as not receiving an invitation.
Then you're much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
Haven't got the smallest intention of doing anything of the kind. To begin with, I dine there on Monday, and once is quite enough with one's own relations. In the second place, whenever I do dine there, I am always treated as a member of the family, and sent down with no women at all, or 2. In the third place, I know perfectly well whom I will be seated next to tonight. I will be seated next to Mary Farquhar, who always flirts with her own husband across the dinner table. It is most unpleasant. Indeed, it isn't even decent. And also, that sort of thing is enormously on the increase. The amount of women in London who flirt with their own husbands is perfectly scandalous. It looks so bad. It is simply washing one's clean linen in public. Now, that I know for you to be a confirmed Bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about Bunburying. I want to tell you the rules.
I'm not a Bunburyist at all. If Bentley accepts me, I'm going to kill my brother. In fact, I think I'd kill him in any case. Cecily seems a little too interesting. It's rather a bore. So I'm going to kill my brother Ernest. I strongly suggest you to say Mr. with your invalid friend who has an absurd name.
Nothing would induce me to part with Bunbury. And if only you do get married, which seems to me extremely problematic, you'll be very glad to know Bunbury. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
That is nonsense. If I were to marry a charming girl like Gwendolyn, and she's the only girl I've ever met in my life who I would marry, I certainly won't want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will. Well, you don't seem to realise that in married life, 3 is company and 2 is none.
That, my dear young friend, is what the corrupt French drama has been propounding for the last 50 years.
Yes, so that the happy English home is proved in half the time.
Oh, for heaven's sake, don't be cynical. It's perfectly easy to be cynical.
My dear boy, it isn't easy to be anything nowadays. There's such a lot of beastly competition about. Ah, that must be Aunt Augusta. Any relations and creditors ever ring in that Wagnerian manner. Now, if I get out of the way for 10 minutes and give a chance to propose to Gwendolyn, may I dine with you at Willis's tonight?
Oh, I suppose so, if you want to.
Yes, but you must be serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about meals. It is so shallow of them.
Lady Bellum and Miss Fairfax. Good afternoon, Algernon. I hope you're behaving very well.
I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
Well, that's not quite the same thing. In fact, those things rarely go together.
Dear me, you are smart.
I'm always smart, am I not, Mr. Worthing?
You're quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. There is no room for development, and I intend to develop in many directions.
sorry, Algernon. I had to call dear Mrs. Harbury. I haven't seen her since her poor husband's death. I've never seen a person so altered. She seems to be quite 20 years younger. And I'll have a cup of tea and one of those cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Yes, Aunt Augusta.
Gwendolyn, won't you come and sit with me? Oh, thanks, Mum. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Good heavens! Lane, where are the cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them especially.
There are no cucumber in the market this morning. I went there twice.
No cucumbers?
No, even for ready money.
That will do, Lane, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I am greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, about there being no cucumbers. Not even for ready money.
It really doesn't matter, Algernon. I had some crumpets with Miss Harbury. She seems to live entirely for pleasure now.
I hear her hair has turned quite gone from grief.
Well, it certainly has changed colour from what I, of course, cannot say. Algernon, I've got quite a treat for you. I'm going to send you down for dinner with Mary Farquhar. She's such a nice lady, and she's so attentive to her husband. It's delightful to watch them.
I'm afraid, Aunt Augusta, that I won't be able to have the pleasure of dining with you tonight after all.
Algernon, I really hope not. That would put my table completely out. And your poor uncle would have to dine upstairs. Well, fortunately, we got so much better.
It is a great bore, and need hardly say a terrible disappointment to me, for the fact is I have just had a telegram to say that poor Bunbury is very ill again, and they seem to think I should be with him.
It's strange. This Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Yes, Bunbury is a poor, dreadful invalid.
Well, Algernon, if you ask me, it is high time for this Bunbury to make up his mind whether he is going to live or to die. This really shilling with the question is absurd. Nor do I in any way approve of sympathy with the modern invalid. I consider it morbid. Diseases of any kind is hardly a thing that should be encouraged in others. Health is the primary duty of life. I always tell this to your poor uncle, but he doesn't seem to take much notice of it, as far as there's any improvement in his ailment goes. Anyway, I would be very delighted if you could ask Bunbury to be kind enough not to have relapse on Saturdays, as I do rely on you to arrange some music for me.
I'll speak to Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he is conscious, and I think I can promise he'll be alright by Saturday. Of course, the music is of great difficulty. You see, if one plays good music, people don't listen. If one plays bad music, people don't talk. I'll run over the programme I've drawn out, if you will so kindly join me in the next room for a moment.
That is very thoughtful of you, Algernon. I'm sure the program will be absolutely delightful after a few expurgations. Gwendolyn, you will accompany me. Certainly, Mama.
Charming day it's been, Miss Fairfax.
Pray don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that they mean something else, and that makes me so nervous.
I do mean something else.
I thought so, in fact, I'm never wrong.
I'd like to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mama has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I've often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I've admired you any more than any girl I've ever met since I met you.
Yes, I'm quite well aware of the fact, and I often wish that in public at any rate you'd been more demonstrative. For me, you've always had an irresistible fascination, even before I met your sparkling interview. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. The fact is constantly mentioned in the most expensive monthly magazines and has such a potential to the same too. And my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Earnest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. The moment Algernon first mentioned that he had a friend called Earnest, I knew it was pleased to love you.
You really love me?
Passionately.
Darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
My own Earnest.
But you don't mean to say you couldn't love me when my name wasn't Earnest?
But your name is Earnest.
Yes, I know it is. But supposing it's something else, you mean to say you couldn't love me then?
Ah, that is clearly a metaphysical speculation, and like most metaphysical speculation, has very little reference to the actual facts of real life as we know them.
Well, personally, darling, to speak quite candidly, I don't care very much for the name of Ernest. I don't think the name suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It's a divine name. It has music of its own. It produces vibration.
Well, really, Gwen, I think there are lots of much nicer names. I think Jack, for instance, is a charming name.
Jack. No, there is very little music in the name Jack, if any at all. Indeed, it does not play. It produces absolutely no vibration. I have known several Jack, and they all, without exception, were more than usually plain. Besides, Jack is notorious domesticity for John, and I pity any woman married to a man called John. She will certainly never be allowed the entrancing pleasure of a single moment's solitude. The only real safe name is Earnest.
Gwendolyn, I must get christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once.
Married, Mr. Worthing?
Well, surely. You know that I love you and led me to believe you're not entirely indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you haven't proposed to me and nothing at all has been said about marriage. This subject has not even been touched on.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity, and to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I think it's only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I'm fully determined to accept you.
Darling.
Yes, Mr. Worthing, what have you got to say to me?
Well, you know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How long have you been about it? I'm afraid you've had very little experience in how to propose.
But I've never loved anyone in the world but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Joe goes. All my girlfriends are so. But wonderful you how you are, Earnest. Quite low. I hope you will always look at me just like that, especially when there are other people present.
Mr. Worthing, right there from the steamer becoming posture. It is most indecorous.
Mama, I'm not ready to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing has not quite finished yet.
Finish what, may I ask?
I'm engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mama.
Pardon me? You're not engaged to anyone. If you do become engaged to someone, I, or your father, if this house allows, will inform you about the fact. And now, Mr. Worthing, I have a question to put to you. While I'm doing those inquiries, you, Gwendolyn, will wait for me below in the carriage.
Mama.
In the carriage, Gwendolyn. The carriage!
Yes, Mama.
You can have it, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell, but I prefer standing.
Well, that's what you Mr. Worthing, I'm going to tell you that you're not quite down on my list of young eligible men, even though I have the same list as the dear Duchess of Bolton has. In fact, we work together. However, I'm quite prepared to enter your name if your answers will be what a really affectionate mother requires. So, do you smoke?
Yes, I must admit I smoke.
I'm glad to hear it. A man should always have some kind of occupation. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you?
29.
Well, that is a very good age to be married at. I've always been of the opinion that a man who desires to get married should either know nothing or everything. So what do you know, Mr. Worthing?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I'm glad to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tempers with natural ignorance. To me, the whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England, at any rate, education has no effect whatsoever. If it did, it would cause a really danger for the upper class, and it might lead to some acts of violence in Russell Square. So, what's your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In investment or in land?
In investments chiefly.
Well, that is satisfactory. What's between the duties expected from one during one's lifetime and the duties expected from one after one's death? Life has ceased to be either a pleasure or a profit. It gives you a position and it prevents you from keeping it up. That's all that can be said about that.
I have a house in the country, of course, with some land attached to it. About 1,500 acres, I believe. Though I don't rely on that for my main income. In fact, as far as I can make out, the poachers saying people can make anything out of it.
A country house? How many bedrooms? Well, that point can be cleared up afterwards. I hope you have a townhouse. Unspoiled later, like Gwendolyn can hardly be imagined to live in the country.
Well, I have a house in Belgrave Square, which I let by the year to Lady Bloxham. Of course, I can get back whenever I like at 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham? I don't know her.
She goes about very little. She's a lady considerably advanced in years.
Mr. Worthing, nowadays, that's no guarantee of respectability of character. So what number in Belgrave Square?
149.
Well, the unfashionable side. I thought there was something that can easily be altered.
Do you mean the fashion or the side?
Both are teaching necessary. Now to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
Mr. Worthing, to lose one parent may be regarded as misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father? He evidently was a man of some wealth. So was he born in what the racial paper call the purple commerce, or did you rise from the ranks of aristocracy?
Well, I'm afraid I really don't know. I said, Lady Bracknell, that I'd lost my parents. Well, if you know the truth, you say my parents seem to have lost me. I was found.
Found.
The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, old gentleman of a very charitable and kindly disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he happened to have a first-class ticket for Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing's a place in Sussex. It's a seaside resort.
And where did this charitable gentleman with a first-class ticket to the seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag.
Yes, a somewhat large black leather handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
And in what locality did Mr. James or Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given to him in mistake for his own.
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station.
Yes. The Brighton line.
The line's immaterial. Mr. Worthing, I have to confess, I'm somewhat bewildered by what you've just told me. To be born, or at any rate wrapped in a handbag, whether it has handles or not, seems to me to display a content from the ordinary decencies of family life. And that reminds me of one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. And I presume you know what this unfortunate movement led to.
Well, may I ask you then what you advise me to do? And you'd hardly say I'd do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
Mr. Worthing, I strongly advise you to try and acquire some relations as soon as possible, and to make some definite effort to produce at any rate one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
Well, I don't see I could possibly do that. I can reach the handbag at any moment. It's my dressing room at home. I really think that ought to satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me? What has it to do with me? Mr. Worthing, you can hardly be dreaming of that Lord Bracknell and I would be dreaming of allowing our only daughter, a girl, brought up with the utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom and to form an alliance with a parcel? Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning. Stop playing that ghastly tune, Algie. How idiotic you are.
Didn't it go off all right, old boy? You don't mean to say she refused you. If I know it is the way she has, she is always refusing people. I think it is most ill-natured of her.
Oh, Gwendolyn's as right as a trivet. As far as she's concerned, we're engaged. Her mother is perfectly unbearable. Never met such a gorgon. I don't actually know what a gorgon is like, but I'm quite sure Lady Bracknell is one. In any case, she is a monster, not being a myth, which is rather unfair. Oh, I beg your pardon, Algie. I suppose I shouldn't be talking about your own aunts in that way before you.
Oh, my dear boy, I love hearing my relations abused. It is the only thing that makes me put up with them. Relations are simply a tedious pack of people who haven't got the remotest knowledge about how to live, nor the smallest intent about when to die.
Oh, that is nonsense.
It isn't.
Well, I won't argue about that. You always want to argue about things.
That is exactly what things were made for.
Upon my word, if I thought like that, I'd shoot myself. Don't think there's any chance of Gwendolyn becoming like a mother in about 150 years, do you, Algie?
All women become like their mothers. That's their tragedy. No man does. That's his.
Is that clever?
It is perfectly phrased and quite as true as any observation in civilized life should be.
I'm sick to death of cleverness. Everybody's clever nowadays. Can't go anywhere without meeting clever people. I think it's become a public nuisance. Wish to goodness we had a few fools left.
We have.
Well, I should extremely like to meet them. What do they talk about?
Oh, the fools. About clever people, of course.
What fools?
By the way, have you told Gwendolyn the truth about you being Earnest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, the truth isn't quite the sort of thing one tells a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about the way to behave to a woman.
The only way to behave to a woman is to make love to her, if she is pretty, and to someone else if she is plain.
Well, that is nonsense.
What about your brother? What about the profligate Earnest?
Oh, I should have got rid of him by the end of the week. I say he died in Paris of apoplexy.
Well, it's hereditary, my dear fellow. It's the sort of thing that runs in families. You had much better say a severe chill.
Are you sure a severe chill isn't hereditary or anything of that kind?
Of course it's not.
Very well then. My poor brother Ernest got carried off quite suddenly in Paris by a severe chill. That gets rid of him.
But I thought you said that Miss Cardew was a little too much interested in your young brother. Won't she feel his loss a good deal?
Oh, I wouldn't worry about that. Sissy's not a silly romantic girl, I'm glad to say. She has a carnival appetite, goes on long walks, and pays absolutely no attention at all to her lessons.
I would really like to meet this Cecily.
I take great care you never do. She's excessively pretty and only just 18.
Have you told Gwendolyn yet about your excessively pretty ward who is only just 18?
One doesn't just blurt these things out to people. Cecily and Gwendolyn are perfectly sure to be extremely great friends. I bet you anything you like that within half an hour of meeting, they'll be calling each other sister.
Women only do that when they call each other a lot of other things first. Besides, yes, indeed, so they call each other a lot of other things. What of it?
What's the time?
It is nearly 7. Shouldn't we be going somewhere? Maybe get a good table at Willis's?
Oh, it's always nearly 7.
Well, shall we do after dinner? Go to a theatre?
Oh no, I loathe listening.
Alright. Well, let's go to the club.
Oh no, I hate talking.
We might trot round to the Empire 10.
Oh no, I can't bear looking at things. It's so silly.
Well, what shall we do?
Nothing.
Oh, it is awfully hard work doing nothing. However, I don't mind doing hard work where there is no definite object of any kind.
Miss Fairfax.
Gwendolyn, upon my word.
Archie, can you turn your back? I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Gwendolyn, I don't think I can allow this at all.
Archie, you always adopt a strictly immoral attitude towards life. You're not quite old enough to do that. Ernest, we may never be married. From the expression on Mama's face, I feel we're never sure. Few parents nowadays pay any regard to what the children say to them. The old-fashioned respect for the youngest are dying out. But all such may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else and marry often. Nothing that you can possibly do can alter my eternal devotion to you.
My own one.
The story of your romantic origin, as related by Mama, with unceasing comment, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your Christian name has an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me. You town address at the Albany House. What's your address in the country?
The Manor House, Walton, Hertfordshire.
There is a good postal service, I suppose. It may be necessary to do something desperate. I will, of course, require serious consideration. I will communicate with you daily.
Darling.
How long do you remain in town?
Till Monday.
Good. Archie, can you turn your back now?
Maybe I've already turned around now.
May I also ring the bell?
You will let me see you to your carriage?
Certainly.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
A glass of sherry, Lane.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, I'm going bunburying.
Yes, sir.
I shan't be back until Monday. I want you to hang up my dress suit, my smoking jacket, and all the Bunbury suits.
Yes, sir.
I hope tomorrow will be a fine day, Lane.
It never is.
Lane, you're the perfect pessimist.
I just try my best to give satisfaction.
Ah, there goes a sweet, intelligent girl. The only girl I've ever cared for in my life. What are you so amused at?
Oh, I'm just a little anxious about poor Bunbury, that is all.
You don't take care. Your friend Bunbury's going to be in a serious scrape one day.
I love scrapes. They are the only thing that's never serious.
That is nonsense. You never talk anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does.
Destiny? Destiny! Surely such a tyrannical occupation, such as slaughtering thousands of Mortons, duty than yours? Especially when the intellectual pleasures await you. Your German grammar's on the table. Pray open to page 15. Repeat yesterday's lesson.
Is that like German? It's a little part of the common language.
know perfectly well that to work quite plain after my German lesson.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you should improve yourself in every way? He lays particular stress on your German. As he was dealing with the town yesterday. As he always puts stress on your German when he is dealing with the town.
Dear Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he is so serious that I think he cannot be quite well.
Your guardian enjoys Bethel's health, and his sanity of demeanour is especially to be commanded at one so comparatively young as he is. I don't know anyone with greater sense of duty or responsibility.
I suppose that's why I often looks a little bored when we appear together.
Cecily, I am surprised at you. Mr. Worthing has enough trouble as it is. Idle merriment and triviality are out of place in this conversation. Need I remind you about his stress about this unfortunate young man, his brother?
I wish Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometimes. We may have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. I know you certainly would. You know German and geology, and things of that kind influence him out very much.
I do not think I could produce any effect on a character to which his own brother's admission is irretrievably weak and vacillating. In fact, I don't think I desire to reclaim him. I'm not in favour of this whole modern mania of turning bad people into good people at a moment's notice. As a man sows, shall let him reap. You must put away your diary, Cecily. I don't even know why you carry on at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary we carry around with us.
Yes, but it usually chronicles the things that couldn't have happened and haven't happened at all. I believe that memory is responsible for the 3-volume novels that Moody sends us.
Do not speak slightingly of the 3-volume novel, Cecily. I too read them earlier days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? Oh, how wonderfully clever you are. I hope it did not end happily. I don't like novels that end happily. They depress me so much.
The good ended happily, the bad ended unhappily. That is what fiction means.
I suppose so, but it seems very unfair. And why shall novel ever publish?
Alas, no. The manuscript was abandoned. And by abandoned, I mean lost or mislaid. Keep your word, child! These speculations are profitless.
Better say dear Dr. Chasuble coming up through the garden.
Dr. Chasuble, it is indeed a pleasure.
And how are we this morning? Miss Prism, I trust you are well?
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I believe it would do her so much good to take a short stroll with you in the park, Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I did not say anything about a headache.
No, dear Miss Prism, I know that. But I felt instinctively that you had a headache. Indeed, I was thinking about that and not my German lesson when the rector came in.
I hope you're not being inattentive, Cecily.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
That is strange. Were I fortunate enough to be Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke metaphorically. My mistress was drunk from these. Mr. Worthing, I suppose, is not returned from town yet?
We did not expect him till Monday afternoon.
Ah, yes. He usually likes to spend his Sundays in London. He's not one of those whose sole aim is enjoyment, as by all accounts the unfortunate young man, his brother, seems to be. But I will not disturb Egeria and your pupil any longer.
Egeria! My name is the teacher, Doctor.
A classical illusion, really, drawn from the pagan authors. I shall see you both, no doubt, at Emerson.
Actually, Doctor, I think I'll join you. I have a headache after all, and sure might do it good.
With pleasure, Miss Prism, with pleasure. We're my goods for us to schools and back.
That sounds delightful. Cecily, you'll continue with your political economy. The chapter of the Father of Peer, you must admit, is somewhat too sensational. Even the, what is it? The metallic problem has a melodramatic side.
Horrid political economy, horrid geography, horrid German.
Mr. Ernest Worthing has driven from the station. He has brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4 the Albany W. Uncle Jack's brother. Did you tell him Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, he seems very disappointed. I mentioned that you and Miss Prism were in the garden, and he was anxious to speak to you privately for a moment.
Ask Mr. Ernest Worthing to come here, and I'd better speak to the housekeeper about a room for him.
Yes, miss?
I've never met any really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I'm so afraid he will look just like everyone else. Guido,
You are my little cousin Cecily, I'm sure.
you are under some strange mistake. I'm not little. In fact, I believe I'm more than usually tall for my age, but I am your cousin Cecily. You will see from your card I'm Uncle Jack's brother, my cousin Ernest, my wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, I am not really wicked at all. You mustn't think now I'm wicked.
If you are not, then you have certainly been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner. I hope you've not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked, then being really good all the time. That would be hypocrisy.
Well, of course I'd be rather reckless.
I am glad to hear it.
In fact, now that you mention the subject, I've been bad in my own small way.
I don't think you should be so proud of that, though I'm sure it must have been very pleasant.
It is much pleasanter being here with you.
I can't understand how you're here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back until Monday afternoon.
Yes, that is a great disappointment. I am obliged to go up on the first train on Monday morning. I have a business appointment that I am anxious to miss.
Couldn't you miss it anywhere but in London?
No, the appointment is in London.
Well, I, of course, know how important it is not to keep a business engagement if one wants to retain any sense of the beauty of life, but I still think you'd better wait until Uncle Jack arrives. I know he wants to speak to you about your emigrating.
About my what?
You're emigrating. He's gone up to buy your outfit.
I certainly wouldn't let Jack buy my outfit. He has no taste in neckties at all.
I don't think you require neckties. Uncle Jack is sending you to Australia.
Australia? I'll sooner die.
Well, he said at dinner on Wednesday night that you'd have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
Well, the accounts I've received of Australia and the next world aren't particularly encouraging. This world is good enough for me, Cousin Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
I'm afraid I'm not that. That is why I want you to reform me. You might make that your mission, if you don't mind, Cousin Cecily.
I'm afraid I've no time this afternoon.
Well, would you mind my reforming myself this afternoon?
It is rather quixotic of you, but I think you should try.
I will. I feel better already.
You're looking a little worse.
That is because I am hungry.
Oh, how thoughtless of me. I should have remembered that when one is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Won't you come in?
Thank you. Why don't I have a buttonhole first? I never have any appetite unless I have a buttonhole first.
A Maréchal Niel?
No. I'd rather have a pink rose.
Why?
Because you are like a pink rose, Cousin Cecily.
I don't think it's right for you to talk to me like that. Miss Prism never said such things to me.
Then Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You are the prettiest girl I ever saw.
Miss Prism says that all good looks are a snare.
They are a snare that every sensible man would like to be caught in.
Oh, I don't think I could care to catch a sensible man. I shouldn't know what to talk to him about.
You're too much alone, dear Chapel. You should get married. A missing book, yes. A moving book, never.
Believe me, I do not observe so neologistic a phrase. The precept as well as the practice of the primitive church was distinctly Fitzmaccabee.
And that is exactly why the primitive church has not lasted this very day, Doctor. By being single, you're leading yourself astray to a public temptation.
But is a man not equally attractive when married?
A man is never attracted to anyone except for his wife.
And often I've been told, according to her.
That depends on the sympathies of the woman. Maturity is dependent on, rightness is trusted. Young women are green. I spoke horticulturally. My metaphor was drawn from fruits, but where is Cecily?
She must have followed us to the schools and back.
Mr. Worthing!
Mr. Worthing?
It's indeed a surprise. We weren't expecting you till Monday afternoon.
I've returned sooner than I expected. Dutch Chapel, I hope you're well.
Dear Mr. Worthing, I trust this garb of wood has not betokened some terrible calamity.
My brother,
For shameful debts and extravagance.
Still leading his life of pleasure?
dead.
Your brother Ernest dead?
Quite dead.
Dram, I'll trust and profit by it.
Dear Mr. Worthing, I offer you my condolences. You have at least the consolation of knowing that you are always the most generous and forgiving of brothers.
Poor Ernest. He had many faults, but it's a sad, sad life.
Very sad indeed. Were you with him at the end?
No, he died abroad. In Paris, in fact. I had to go home last night from the manager of the Grand Hotel.
What was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
The man so shall let him.
Charity, dear Miss Prism, charity. None of us are perfect. I myself am peculiarly susceptible to drafts. Will the interment take place here?
No, he seems to express desire to be buried in Paris.
In Paris? That hardly points to any serious state of mind at the last. You would no doubt wish me to make some slight allusion to this tragic domestic affliction next Sunday. My sermon on the morrow of the wilderness can be adapted to almost any occasion, joyful or, as in the present case, distressing. I have preached at harvest celebrations, christenings, confirmations, days of humiliation, and festival days. The last time I performed it was at the cathedral on behalf of the Society for the Prevention of Discontent amongst the Upper Orders. The bishop, who was there, was much struck by Sunday Night's literature.
That reminds me. You mentioned christenings, I think, Dr. Shaswater. I suppose you know how to christen, all right? I mean, of course, you're continually christening, aren't you?
It is, I regret to say, one of the rector's most constant duties in his parish. I often speak to the lower classes of this. They don't seem to know what thrift means.
But is there any particular infant in whom you're interested, Mr. Worthing? Your brother was, I believe, unmarried, was he not?
Oh, yes.
People who live entirely independently usually are.
But it's not for any child, dear Doctor. I'm very fond of children. No, the fact is, I would like to christen myself this afternoon, if you've nothing better to do.
But surely you've already been christened, Mr. Worthing.
I don't remember anything about it.
And have you any grave doubts on the subject?
I certainly intend to have. Of course, I don't know if the whole thing will bother you anyway, or if you think I'm a little too old now.
Not at all, not at all. The sprinkling and, indeed, the immersion of adults is a perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion?
You need have no apprehensions. The sprinkling is all that is necessary, or indeed I think advisable. The weather is so changeable. At what hour would you wish the ceremony performed?
Oh, I might trot round about 5.
That's perfectly, perfectly. In fact, I have 2 similar ceremonies to perform at that time. A case of twins in one of the outlying cottages of your own estate. Poor Mrs. Jenkins, the most hard-working man.
Well, I don't see much fun in being christened with other children. It'd be childish. Would 5:30 do?
Admirably, admirably. And now, dear Mr. Worthing, I shall not intrude into a house of sorrow any longer. I merely beg of you not to be too much bowed down by grief. What seem to us bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
Seems to me a blessing of extreme obvious kind.
Uncle Jack! Oh, I'm pleased to see you back. Look what horrid clothes you've got on. Oh, do go change them.
Cecily!
What's the matter, Uncle Jack? You look as if you had toothache. And I've got such a surprise for you. Who do you think's in the dining room? Your brother.
Who?
Your brother Ernest. You arrived about half an hour ago.
What nonsense. I haven't got a brother.
Oh, don't say that. However badly he may have behaved to you in the past, he's still your brother. You couldn't be so heartless as to disown him. I'll tell him to come out and you will shake hands then, won't you, Uncle Jack?
These are very joyful tidings.
After his old signs of his death, his sudden return is distressing.
My brother is in the dining room. Don't know what it all means. I think it's perfectly absurd. Good heavens.
Brother John, I've come down to town to tell you that I'm very sorry for all the trouble I've given you, that I intend to lead a better life in the future.
Uncle Jack, you are not going to refuse your own brother's hand.
Nothing will induce me to take his hand. I think he's coming down here a disgrace. And it's perfectly well why.
Oh, Uncle Jack, do be nice. There is some good in everyone. Ernest has just been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, whom he goes to visit so often. And surely there is much good in one who is kind to an invalid and leaves the pleasures of London to sit by a bed of pain.
Oh, he's been to Bunbury, has he?
Yes, he's told me all about poor Mr. Bunbury and his terrible state of health.
Bunbury? Well, I haven't talked about Bunbury or anything else for that matter. It's enough to drive one perfectly frantic.
Oh, of course I admit that the faults were on my side, but I must say that Brother John's coldness towards me is peculiarly painful, especially considering this is the first time I've come here.
Uncle Jack, if you don't shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me?
Never, never, never.
Well, this is the last time I shall ever do it.
It's pleasant, is it not, to see so perfect a reconciliation? I think we might leave the 2 brothers together.
Cecily, you'll come with us.
Certainly, Miss Prism. My little task of reconciliation is over.
You have done a beautiful action today, dear child.
Let's not be premature with our judgments.
I feel very happy.
You young scoundrel, Algie. Gotta get out of this place at once. Won't have any bumbling around here.
I've put Mr. Ernest Worthing in the room next to yours. I suppose it's all right.
What?
Mr. Ernest Worthing's luggage. I unpacked it in putting in the room next to yours.
His luggage?
Yes, the suitcase, 1 dressing case, 2 headballs, and 1 lunch basket.
I'm afraid I can't stay for more than a week this time.
Merriman, order the dog cart at once. Mr. Earnest has suddenly been called back to town.
Fearful lie you are, Jack. I haven't been called back to town at all.
Yes, you have.
I haven't heard anyone call me.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you back.
My duty as a gentleman has never interfered with my pleasures in the smallest degree.
I can quite understand that.
Well, I'm not going to go anywhere at all. I'm staying right here.
Well, will you go if I change my clothes?
Yes, so long as you don't take too long. I never saw anybody take so long to dress and with such little result.
In any case, I spend always being overdressed as you are.
Well, though I am occasionally a little overdressed, I more than make up for it by being always mentally over-educated.
Your vanity is ridiculous, your conduct an outrage, your presence in my garden is absurd. However, we've got to catch the 4:05 train, and I wish you a pleasant journey back to town. This bumbering, as you call it, has not been a great success for you.
I think it's been a great success. I am in love with Cecily, and that is everything. But I must see her before I go, and make arrangements for another Bunbury. Ah, there she is.
Alan, I nearly came back to water the roses. I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
He's gone to order the dog cart for me.
Is he going to take you for a nice drive?
He's going to send me away.
Then have we got to part?
I'm afraid so. It is a painful parting.
It is always painful to part from those one has known for a very brief space of time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity. Even a momentary separation from anyone whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
Thank you.
The dog is at the door, son.
It can wait, Marilyn, for 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
I hope, Cecily, I shall not offend you when I state quite openly and frankly that you seem to me to be in every way the visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest, and if you will allow, I will copy your remarks down into my diary.
Do you really keep a diary? If you permit me to look at it, may I?
Oh no, you see, it is simply a very young girl's record of my thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. When it appears in volume form, I do hope you will order a copy. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. I delight in taking down from dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. You can go on now. I'm quite ready for more. Oh, don't cough, Ernest. When one is dictating, one should speak fluently and not cough. Besides, I don't know how to spell a cough.
Cecily, ever since I looked upon your wonderful, incomparable beauty, I have dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
I don't think you should tell me that you love me wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't make much sense, does it?
Cecily!
The dog is waiting.
Tell her to come round next week, at the same hour.
Yes.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed if he knew you were staying on till next week at the same hour.
Oh, I don't care what Jack thinks. I don't care what anyone else in the whole world thinks. I love you, Cecily. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy. Of course. Why, we've been engaged for the last 3 months.
For the last 3 months?
Yes, it will be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
But how did we become engaged?
Well, ever since that Uncle Jack first confessed to us that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, you of course have formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism, and of course a man who is much talked about is always very attractive. One thinks there must be something in him after all. I dare say it was foolish of me, but I fell in love with you, Ernest.
Darling, but when was the engagement actually settled?
On February 14th last, worn out by your ignorance of my entire existence, I determined to settle the matter one way or the other, and after a long battle with myself, I decided to accept you with this dear old tree here. The next day I bought a little ring in your name, and this is the bangle with the true lover's knot I promised you always to wear.
Did I give you this? It's very pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you've wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It is the excuse I've always given you for your leading such a bad life. And in here, this is the box where I keep all your dear letters.
My letters? But sweet dear Cecily, I've never written you any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that, Ernest. I can remember only too well that I was forced to write your letters for you. The three you wrote me after I broke off our engagement are so beautiful and so badly spelled that even now I can hardly read them without crying a little.
Oh, do let me read them, Cecily.
Oh, I couldn't possibly. It would make you far too conceited.
But was our engagement actually ever broken off?
Of course it was. On the 22nd of last March. Here, you can read the entry if you like. Today I broke off my engagement with Ernest. I feel it is better to do so. The weather still continues charming.
Why on earth would you break off our engagement? What had I done? I haven't done anything at all. Cecily, I'm very hurt indeed to hear that you broke it off, particularly when the weather's so charming.
It would have hardly been a really serious engagement if it hadn't been broken off at least once. But I forgave you before the week was out.
What a perfect angel you are, Cecily.
You dear romantic boy. I hope your hair curls naturally, does it?
Yes, darling, with a little help from others.
I'm so glad.
You'll never break off our engagement again, Cecily.
Oh, I couldn't now I've actually met you. But besides, of course, there is the question of your name.
Yes, of course.
You
You must not laugh at me, darling, but it has always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone of the name of Ernest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. I pity any poor married woman whose husband is not called Ernest.
But my dear child, do you mean to say you could not love me if I had some other name?
But what name?
Oh, any name you like. Algernon, for instance?
But I don't like the name of Algernon.
I really don't see why you would object to not liking the name of Algernon. Really, like, half the chaps who get into the bankruptcy courts are called Algernon. But seriously, Cecily, if my name was Algie, couldn't you love me?
I might respect you, Ernest. I may even admire your character, but I fear I could not give you my undivided attention.
Ahem. Your rector here is, I suppose, thoroughly experienced in the practice of all the rites and ceremonials of the church.
Oh, yes. Dr. Chastable is a most learned man. He's never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
I must see this man on the most important the most important business.
Oh?
I shan't be away for more than half an hour.
Considering we've been engaged since February the 14th, and that I only met you for the first time today, I think it rather hard for you to leave me so long a period as half an hour. Couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be back in no time.
What an impetuous boy he is. I like his hair so much. I must send his proposal in my diary.
Miss Fairfax is called to see Mr. Worthing on a very important business, Miss Fairfax said.
Is it Mr. Worthing in his library?
He went in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Pray ask the ladies to come here. Mr. Worthing is sure to be back soon, and you can bring tea.
Yes, miss.
Miss Fairfax. No doubt not one of the many elderly women who's associated with Uncle Jack and his philanthropic work in London. I don't quite like women who are interested in philanthropic work. It's very forward of them.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray, let me introduce myself to you. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew was a very sweet name, something tells me that you are going to be great friends. I like you already more than I can tell you. My first impressions of people are never wrong.
How nice of you to like me so much after we've known each other such a comparatively short time.
I may call you Cecily, may I not?
With pleasure.
And you will always call me Gwendolyn, won't you?
If you wish.
Then that is all quite settled, is it not?
I hope so.
Perhaps this might be a favorable opportunity of my mentioning who I am. My father is Lord Bracknell. You have never heard of Papa, I suppose.
I don't think so.
Outside the family circle, Papa and Jack is entirely alone, and I think that is quite as it should be. The home seems to be the proof of steel for a man, and once a man begins to neglect his domestic duty, he becomes painfully effeminate, does he not? And I don't like that. It makes men so very attractive. Silly, do you mind if I look at you for a moment?
Oh, not at all. I'm very fond of being looked at.
You're here on a short visit, I suppose.
Oh no, I live here.
Indeed. You must have no doubt of some female relatives with relatives resides here also.
Oh no, I have no mother. No, in fact, any relations.
Really?
It is my dear guardian, with the assistance of Miss Prism, who have the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
Yes, I'm Mr. Worthing's ward.
Oh, it is strange she never mentioned to me that he had a ward. How's the pretty book in? It grows more interesting already. I'm not sure, however, that the news inspired me with feelings of unmixed delight. I'm very fond of you, Cecily. I've liked you ever since I met you. But now that I know that you are Mr. Worthing's ward, I cannot help expressing a wish you are well. Just a little older than you seem to be, and not so very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly,
Oh, pray do. I think that when one has anything unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid.
while to speak with perfect candor, Cecily, I wish that you were fully 42 and more than you thank his age. Ernest has a strong upright nature. He's the very soul of truth and honor. His loyalty would be as impossible for him as affection. But even men of the noblest moral character are extremely susceptible to the influence of the physical charms of others. Modern no less than ancient history supplies us with many most painful examples that I refer to. If it were not so, history would be quite unreadable.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolyn. But did you say Ernest?
Yes?
Oh, it's not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It's his brother, his older brother.
Ernest never mentioned to me that he had a brother.
I'm sorry to say they've not been on good terms for a long time now.
Ah, that accounts for it. Now that I think about it, I think I've never heard any man mentioning his brother. The subject seems distasteful not to man. Cecily, you have lifted a load from my memory. I was growing almost anxious. It would have been terrible if you now that come across a friendship like ours, would it not? Of course, you're quite sure that it's not Mr. Ernest Worthing who's your guardian.
I'm quite sure. In fact,
I'm going to be his. I beg your pardon? My dearest Gwendolen, there is no reason why I should make a secret of it to you. Our little county newspaper is sure to chronicle the fact next week. Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married. I think there must be some slight error, Miss Cardew. Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me. The announcement will appear on the Morning Post on Saturday at the latest.
You must be under some misconception. Ernest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
Oh, it is very strange, for he asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. If you would care to verify the incident, pray do so. I never travel without my diary. One should always have something impressionable to read in the train. I'm so sorry, dear Cecily, if it is any disappointment to you, but I'm afraid I have the prior claim.
It would distress me more than I can tell you, dear Gwendolen, if it would cause you any mental or physical anguish. But I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he has clearly changed his mind.
If the poor fellow has been entrapped into any foolish promise, I shall consider my duty to rescue him at once, and with firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglement my poor boy may have gotten himself into, I will not reproach him with it until after we are married.
Do you allude to me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement? You are presumptuous. On an occasion of this kind, it becomes more than the moral duty to say what's mine, it becomes a pleasure.
Do you suggest, Miss Fairfax, that I entrapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you? This is no time to wear the shallow mask of manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
I'm glad to say I've never seen a spade. It is obvious that his social spheres have been widely different.
Shall I lay tea here as usual?
Yes, as usual.
Are there any interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh yes, a great many. From the top of one of the hills quite close, one can see 5 counties.
5 counties? I don't think I should like that. I hate crowds.
Suppose that's why you live in town.
Quite a well-kept garden, this is Miss Cardew.
So glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea there were any flowers in the country.
Oh, flowers are as common here, Miss Fairfax, as people are in London.
Personally, I cannot understand how anybody manages to exist in the country, if anybody who is anybody does. The country always bores me to death.
This is what the newspapers call agricultural depression, is it not? I believe the aristocracy are suffering from it at present. It is also almost an epidemic among them, I've been told. May I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Thank you, detestable girls, but I'm quite thin.
Sugar?
Oh no, thank you, sugar is not fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Bread and butter, because cake is rarely seen in the best houses nowadays.
Hand that to Miss Fairfax.
You have filled my tea with lumps of sugar, and though I ask most distinctly for bread and butter, you have given me cake? I'm known for the gentleness of my disposition and the extraordinary sweetness of my nature, but I warn you, Miss Cardew, may go too far.
To save my poor, innocent, trusting boy from the machinations of any other girl, there are no lengths to which I would not go.
From the moment I thoroughly distrusted you, I knew you were false and deceitful. I am never deceived in such matters. My first impressions of people are invariably right.
It seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I'm trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you have many similar calls of a similar nature to make in the neighbourhood.
Earnest, my own Earnest.
Gentlemen, darling.
A moment. May I ask if you're engaged to be married to this young lady?
No, Cecily, of course not. What could put such an idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you, you may.
I knew there must be some misunderstanding, Miss Fairfax. The gentleman whose arm at present is around your waist is my dear guardian, Mr. John Worthing.
I beg your pardon?
This is Uncle Jack.
Jack!
Here is Ernest.
My own love.
A moment, Ernest. May I ask if you're engaged to be married to this young lady?
To what young lady? Good heavens, Gwendolen!
Yes, the good heavens, Gwendolen. I mean, to Gwendolen.
Of course not. What could have put an idea into such a pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
My darling Cecily, I think there must be some slight error. The gentleman who is now embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrief.
Algernon Moncrief? Oh. Are you called Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
Oh, is your name really John?
I could deny it. Deny anything if I like. It most certainly is John. It's been John for years.
A gross deception has been practiced on both of us.
My poor wounded Cecily.
My sweet wronged
You
Gwendolen.
will call me sister, will you not?
One question I'd like to put to my guardian.
An admirable idea. Mr. Worthing, there's just one question I would like to be permitted to put to you. Why is your brother Ernest, we're both engaged to be married to your brother Ernest, it is a matter of some importance to us to know why your brother Ernest is at present.
Gwendolyn, Cecily, very painful for me to be forced to speak the truth. It's the first time in my life I've ever been reduced to such a painful position. I'm really quite inexperienced doing anything of the kind. However, I'll tell you quite frankly that I have no brother, Ernest. I have no brother at all. I've never had a brother. I have not the smallest intention of ever having one in the future.
No brother at all?
None.
Had you never a brother of any kind?
Never. Not even of any kind.
I'm afraid it is quite clear, Cecily, that neither of us is engaged to be married to anyone. This is not a very pleasant position for a young girl to find herself in, is it? Let us go into the house and we'll hardly venture to come after us there. No. Men are so cowardly, aren't they?
This ghastly state of things is what you call bumbering, I suppose.
Yes, a wonderful bunbury it is. The most wonderful bunbury I've ever had in my life.
You have no right whatsoever to bunbury around here.
That is absurd. One has the right to bunbury wherever one chooses. Every serious bunburyist knows that.
Serious bunburyist? Good heavens.
Your brother is a little off colour, isn't he, dear Jack? You won't be able to go up to town quite so frequently as your wicked cousin was. Not a bad thing either.
As for your conduct towards Miss Cardew, I think you're taking a sweet little girl like that to be quite inexcusable. To say nothing of fact, she is my ward.
Accusing no possible defence at all, for you're deceiving a brilliant, clever, thoroughly experienced young lady like Miss Fairfax, to say nothing of the fact that she is my cousin.
I want to be engaged to Gwendolyn, that is all. I love her.
Oh, I simply want to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
There is certainly no chance of your marrying Miss Cardew.
I don't see much likelihood, Jack, of you and Miss Fairfax being united.
That is no business of yours.
If it was my business, I wouldn't talk about it. It is very vulgar to talk about one's business. Only people like stockbrokers do that, and then merely at dinner parties.
How you can sit there calmly eating muffins during this horrible trouble, I can't make out. You seem to me perfectly heartless.
Well, I can't eat muffins in an agitated manner. The butter will probably go on my cups. One should eat muffins quite calmly. It is the only way to eat them.
See, it's perfectly heartless eating muffins at all under the circumstances.
No. When I am in trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. Indeed, when I am really in great trouble, and anyone who knows me intimately will tell you, I refuse everything but food and drink. At the present moment, I am eating muffins because I am unhappy. Besides, I am particularly fond of muffins.
Well, there's no reason why she did more that greedy way.
I wish I would have tea cake. I don't like tea cake.
Good heavens. I suppose a man may eat his own muffins in his own garden.
You just said it's perfectly heartless to eat muffins.
I said it's perfectly heartless of you, under the circumstances.
That may be, but the muffins are the same.
That is nonsense.
You can't possibly expect me to not go without having some dinner. It's absurd. I never go without my dinner. No one ever does, except vegetarian people like that. Besides, I've talked to Dr. Chatterbourne. I've been christening under the name of Earnest.
My dear fellow, the sooner you give up that nonsense, the better. I made arrangements with Dr.